Hello and welcome to Hammer Time, a Hammer horror podcast, part of the Evolution of Horror Network. I'm Becky Darke, a film critic and Hammer fangirl, and I'm joined by my co-host, human encyclopedia of film and TV, and Hammer superfan, Kevin Lyons. Hi, Kev.
Hi, Becky. How are you?
Oh, phew. You came back.
I came back.
Oh, I'm so relieved.
Reluctantly, and I had to be dragged in here and sort of shackled to my chair, to be fair. But I came back. Whether we'll survive this episode or not, I don't know.
Last week, if you haven't listened to our episode about the witches, last week Kevin and I had our widest gap of disagreement that we've had in 32 or 33 films, this entire podcast so far. And yeah, we're back today to talk about another film that I think we maybe disagree on looking at our letterbox scores. So this will be another fun chat.
Yes, won't it just? Yes, all right. Let's crack on. Let's get this over and done with, shall we?
In this podcast, Kevin and I are watching and discussing every horror film in Hammer's back catalogue. And this week, we're back with our old pal Baron Frankenstein as Peter Cushing returns in Frankenstein Created Woman from 1967.
Frankenstein Created Woman.
Who am I? Who am I?
Our Hammer Time discussions are all spoilerific and we go into plot details and chat about the endings of the films. So if you'd like to watch Frankenstein Created Woman before you listen to the episode, you can find it on DVD and Blu-ray, and it's part of the classic Hammer box set. Right, Kev, it's been 3 years and about a dozen films since we were last with the Baron in The Evil of Frankenstein. So, catch us up. How did we get to this one?
There's been talk, largely unsubstantiated, I can't find anything definite about this, that Hammer wanted to do a female monster story after The Curse of Frankenstein.
Oh.
Quatermass 2 had gone out in the UK on a double bill with a Roger Vadim film, Et Dieu créa la femme, or And God Created Woman. Oh. And there's been this rumour, as I say, never really entirely confirmed, that Hammer were inspired and wanted to make a film called And Then Frankenstein Created Woman, which was going to be a sequel, like a bride of Frankenstein, kind of, bit of a deal like that.
Yeah.
The story goes that Christopher Lee was reluctant to return as the monster. The monster was supposed to return from the grave and demand a mate. That was the idea of it. So essentially it was going to be a remake of Bride of Frankenstein, but plans got changed because Christopher Lee wasn't keen on playing the monster again.
I see.
And which is entirely understandable, I think. And it seems that Anthony Hines, who wrote the script for Frankenstein Created Woman, partly took inspiration as well from a script by A.R. Rawlinson that he'd submitted for a proposed television series called Tales of Frankenstein. That was aborted after one pilot episode was made.
I think I remember you mentioning this before.
Yeah, I mentioned it before with Anton Diffring.
That's it.
Is playing Frankenstein. It never went any further than that one pilot episode, which you can find as an extra on various DVDs if you want to see it. Mm-hmm. So they kind of took elements from that. They took the title from And God Created Woman. And like you say, here we are 3 years later. I think we've mentioned before the idea of looking for continuity in these films is a bit of a fool's errand sometimes. There are little hints here and there. In this film, Frankenstein's hands are always covered.
That's right.
Which kind of makes us think that, yes, he had them burned in the explosion at the end of Evil of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It goes beyond even just the gloves, doesn't it? Because Peter Cushing, obviously being the consummate professional that he is,
of course,
incredible performer. There are moments throughout this film where he'll kind of wince. Yeah. He'll go to pick something up.
That's
or
right.
Reach for something, and he'll sort of wince. And then obviously there's the whole thing about him not being able to do the surgery himself and have so.
But I don't think it's ever entirely explained how he survived the end of Evil of Frankenstein. I think we're just supposed to accept that he has.
Yeah.
And here he is setting up business again. So, that continuity, it's not there. Don't go looking for it. It's kind of vaguely in the air somewhere, but don't worry too much about it. Worry about it mainly as a kind of standalone film, if you like.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because we're introduced to him when he's sort of pulled out of this sort of deep freeze, really.
Yes, that's right.
And revived. And I think I thought I think maybe you're supposed to think when he's first pulled out, like, he's kind of been dead since the end of the last film, and this is him being revived. But then you learn, well, it's not that. Actually, he's in the middle of an experiment, and actually he's only been frozen for about an hour because he's...
An hour, that's right, yeah.
He's
so he's
looking into souls and things.
Well, in some ways, it might have been more interesting if he'd they had it so he'd been deep frozen since then, and during his deep freeze, he'd had some sort of weird spiritual epiphany about soul. That could have been interesting, but it doesn't matter. We just come in. This is Frankenstein a few years later. Somehow he survived. Just get on with the story,
exactly.
basically.
As you say, he set himself up again. He's got a couple of new assistants who are very loyal, but, He
commands great loyalty, given that he's a complete sod most of the time, isn't he?
I find it remarkable.
He's quite unpleasant to people, and yet these people are really, really loyal to him, which is bizarre, but there you are.
Very charismatic man.
He is. He's Peter Cushing. Come on, I mean, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look at the plot of the movie. A deformed, tormented girl drowns herself after her lover is framed for murder and guillotined. Baron Frankenstein, experimenting with the transfer of souls, places the boy's soul into her body and brings Christina back to life. Driven by revenge, she carries out a violent retribution on those responsible for both deaths.
There are some issues with that synopsis, where I will come to later on, about who's actually committing the violent retribution. But and it's a bit vague about who's in the driving seat, shall we say, during those scenes. Bit vague. Yeah. Bit vague. Yeah.
All right. So last week we discussed The Witches. I loved it,
and I think we agreed, didn't we, that you were completely wrong. That's my memory.
I'll have to listen back to the episode to remind myself.
No, don't worry about that. I'm sure you admitted at the end. Yes, Kev, of course you're right. It's not that great. Yeah, I'm sure that's how I remember it. So yeah, don't take that away from me.
And you were slightly more lukewarm. Mm-hmm. Talking about Frankenstein Created Woman, I have a feeling that we are the other way round. So I think that I am the lukewarm one and you are much more positive. So tell me what it is about this film that you love.
One of the things I like about it a great deal is it's not just trying to be the same old Frankenstein film. It's trying to do something different. Mm-hmm. I think what it does is sometimes a bit clumsy, but at least it is trying to be different. It's not just a case this time of Frankenstein slapping together some body parts that he's got from the hangman's noose or whatever. He's taken a much more metaphysical approach to life. I think also that we're seeing a Frankenstein here who's much more in line with the Frankenstein from the first two films, from The Curse of Frankenstein and Revenge of Frankenstein. He's not the whingy little man that was in Evil of Frankenstein, who's just, why can't they leave me alone? I just want all my furniture back. That Frankenstein thankfully has gone, and we've got much more of a sort of an arrogant and sort of, a brutal sort of Frankenstein in a way in this one. But he is actually taking a more metaphysical approach to life. That won't last long. It'll only last the one film, but I think it's quite a welcome change for me that they try to do something different. It doesn't entirely succeed, but they try, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
There's a bit right at the beginning when he's talking to Dr. Hertz, lovely Thorny Waters as Dr. Hertz.
Yeah.
And he says something like the classic sort of Baron Frankenstein line. He says something like, "I've conquered death." And I thought to myself, I mean, you did that like 3 films ago. Yeah. What are you talking about?
You'd kind of done that. Yeah, you'd kind of done that. But, been there, done that, mate. But yeah.
But I completely agree with what you're saying there, Kev, because this does feel like not only a progression in kind of the plot and you know the narrative of the Frankenstein films themselves. But it does sort of feel like quite a good, convincing progression of where Frankenstein might be with his kind of research by this point, because obviously what we need to remember is that despite the fact that he has conquered death a number of times by this point in various guises, they've always kind of ended in disaster, right?
They have.
And so he's constantly having to go like, well, that one didn't work, so what's next? And in this one, he seems to have landed on like soul transference. So before we had...
That's right,
and it also feels like quite a natural progression from brain transplant, which obviously we had in Revenge.
That's right, yes.
I almost feel like this film would fit better in the evil of Frankenstein place.
Right, okay.
And almost swap them. Just because it sort of goes from, classic Frankenstein, digs up all the bits, puts them all back together, reanimates them, to Revenge of Frankenstein, brain transplant. And then you could go Frankenstein Created Woman, soul transplant.
Right, yeah.
And then you could go Evil of Frankenstein, where he's like, okay, none of that really worked. Let's
go and dig up this old monster that no one has mentioned before.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. No, that's not bad, actually. I like that as an ordering. That does feel better to me. Yeah. In some ways, yeah.
And then it would also almost slightly explain why he was whingy in the middle and isn't so whingy now. Like, so you get to him being whingy a bit later.
yeah, exactly. But then, you know, have you seen the next in the series, Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed?
I have. I loved it.
It's terrific, and I'm not quite sure how the whingy Frankenstein would have fitted in between.
Do you know what? That is a really good point.
So looking forward to talking about that film, but we are talking about Frankenstein Created Woman.
We are talking about Frankenstein Created Woman.
But I like the fact that he's trying to do something different.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I think I'm slightly more inclined to give the film the benefit of the doubt. There are some issues which I'm sure we're going to cover. I know we're going to cover. But I think, it's trying for originality.
Yeah. And I think, I can't disagree with that at all. I think for me, what is it? The three guys, right? The droogs, I like to call them.
Yes, the toffs.
The toff droogs.
The toff droogs.
I've just found completely insufferable, and I found that whole thing really dull, actually.
Oh, okay.
So the trouble is the actual Frankenstein side of things, like every time we kind of go back to, Frankenstein being a bit of a git and, doing his experiments, obviously every time Peter Cushing's on screen, and Thorley Waters as Dr. Hertz. I think both of those are lovely, and they play off each other so well.
They do.
There's such a contrast in their two characters that
Are you not reminded a little bit of Watson and Holmes?
Yes.
The Thorley Waters is Watson. Peter Cushing, of course, already has been Holmes and will be again. He's Holmes. He's got that kind of... He's more like the bumbling Nigel Bruce Watson.
Yeah, yes.
But he has got that same dynamic.
The way that they've styled Dr. Hertz in this, he just reminds me of Geppetto from Pinocchio, like from the Disney
does, doesn't he?
one.
Yeah, he does, which is really weird, isn't it?
And once I noticed it, I couldn't see him as anything else.
Which would have been really, really, really good if this had been a film about them bringing a boy to life.
Wouldn't that have been amazing?
Which they kind of are, but not in the way that Geppetto does.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like, we should have had this Thorley Walters in the first film, maybe.
Also, talking about horror films, I would like to say that Frankenstein Created Woman is nowhere near as terrifying as Disney's Pinocchio.
Very few things are as terrifying as Pinocchio, to be honest. It scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the darkest of all those Disney classics.
Oh, isn't it just? Yes. We will do that one day. We'll do a special podcast on the Disney that terrified us. How about that?
Yeah, well, in fact, I think that's pretty much the next evolution of horror, like main feature. Reed season, isn't it?
Yeah. We'll hijack that. We'll just talk about Pinocchio. Brilliant.
So yeah, anytime those two are on screen, obviously I'm in.
Sure.
But a lot of the rest of it, like you talked about pacing in The Witches, and I struggled. This struggled to hold my attention.
Oh, okay.
Kev. I found it really plodding,
right?
And those three, the sort of the drunk toffs.
Yeah,
I just found it very difficult spending time with them.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my main sort of negative, I guess, was any time, Frankenstein wasn't on screen, I was like, oh, come on, get on with it. And the other was, tonally, I found it a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
Because you've got this real kind of nastiness of this poor... the plot described her as deformed, which I think is a bit mean.
Yeah.
But, she's disabled and she's got a kind of birthmark or some scarring on her face.
That's right, yeah.
She's very self-conscious. She's bullied by these gits from the village.
Yeah.
And she's got this lovely little boyfriend, and then, he gets framed and gets killed.
Yeah.
And she takes her own life, and it's all very sad. And then you get this other bit sort of tonally throughout the film, which is almost this kind of high camp of her dressed in little dirndls and this sort of weird stuff of her Hans's voice coming out of Christina's mouth and all of that. I was like, what am I watching?
I must admit, it does get a bit muddled with the whole Hans and Christina relationship once both of them are dead.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting in itself, that they continue a relationship after both of them have died. I mean, that in itself is interesting. But there's some... we'll talk about this. We'll talk about... Yeah, bear it in mind. Let's consider this as we go along. Who's doing the seducing of the toffs? We'll talk about that in more detail later, because it feels like there's a more interesting story that they weren't brave enough to tell. But never mind, we'll come to that.
Interesting. I would also like to come on sort of parallelogram. No.
Paralleling.
In parallel.
Yes.
About some of the gender politics in this film as well, which...
You can't have a film called Frankenstein Created Woman and not have some issues with that, I think.
It could have been so much cooler. They could have done so much more interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And they didn't. We got this instead. But
Anyway, we'll get to all that.
Terence Fisher is back in the director's chair. How does he do here, Kev? It's nice to see him back. Do you think that this is vintage Hammer from Terence Fisher?
Not vintage Hammer. It's not the best of the Hammer Frankensteins. I prefer it to Evil of Frankenstein. I prefer it a hell of a lot more to Horror of Frankenstein. But I think of the good ones, what I think of as the good ones, it's probably the least. Although there's a lot going for it still. I still find there's more going for it than certainly in Evil. It just seems to step up. I think Terence Fisher brings back some of that sort of fairy tale romance to it, or tries to. There's
definitely much more of a fairy tale element in this one, I think.
There is. It particularly struck me when Christina throws herself off the bridge. I thought, this is high tragedy. But he's sort of literally framed in shot as like being from an East European fairy tale film. It had that kind of dreamlike magic that I expect from Terence Fisher. And so that again is another reason why I think maybe in some ways I react to this film because I'm reacting badly to Evil of Frankenstein, which, as you'll remember, I really didn't enjoy at all.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember what my opinion on Evil was.
It was a long while ago. It's surprising how far we've come really on this journey, that we've sort of films that feel like they were very close together in the real world.
Isn't it funny?
Are actually not at all into our terms.
I couldn't believe it when I looked at the list and realised that there were 10 or 11 films that we've discussed since we we discuss that one? So I gave Evil of Frankenstein 3 stars, which is half a star more than I gave this one. So
Right, so, okay, I'm the other way round, I think. I prefer this to Evil. But, I mean, neither of them are great. Neither of them are Curse. Neither of them are Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, which is extraordinary.
It's really good.
And neither of them are Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, which I think is massively underrated. Even now.
Ooh.
Even now. I love that film. I think it's
Oh my God, that's good. I'm excited about that one then.
terrific film. You've seen that? You've seen it, haven't you?
And the Monster from Hell?
Yeah.
No.
Ah, I thought you had. Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, I should look forward to us discussing that.
The ones that I've seen that we haven't discussed yet are Horror of and
Oh, dear.
and Must Be Destroyed.
Hey, that's more like it. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if we take horror and evil out of the equation for the moment, I think this sort of sits at the bottom of the Frankensteins that I love. But I still think it's a very worthy film. I think there's still a lot going on in this film that sort of demands a certain amount of respect, which I suspect you're not going to bloody give it, are you? So,
So you said kind of it does something different, but what does it kind of bring to the Frankenstein table that maybe we haven't seen before?
well, I think that is mainly the thing, that it moves away from the physical.
Yeah.
In the sense that he's not trying to do... It's not a body horror film. This is much more of a psychological horror film, because it is about these 2 young people who get... I mean, they get body horror in the sense that they're merged, but it's about their psyches and what happens to that psyche and their soul after death.
Very much so.
You know, it changes both of them when they come back from the dead. You know, Hans comes back... Hans is Christina's boyfriend, who gets guillotined, like his father had been guillotined.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a cyclical thing going on. And he gets guillotined for a crime he didn't commit, which causes Christina to throw herself in the lake and drown. And then, because Frankenstein is an absolute bastard again, who cares about nothing but his own progress, he brings them back. He brings Christina back physically, using Dr. Hertz, because he can't do the operation anymore, and brings back Hans using some strange and very ill-defined process, which returns Hans to life initially as a glowing ball of light, which then, for reasons best known only to Frankenstein, he thinks, I know, I'll put him in this girl's body. They can both share this body. And he just takes...
It's the way...
Yeah,
it's
okay.
the way his reaction... He's such a git. His reaction to this poor girl having lost, like, the only guy who seems to be... Well, apart from her dad is really nice to her.
Yeah.
But the only kind of, like, sort of potential love interest or
That's right,
friend
yeah.
Of the opposite sex that she has, this, you know, he's really in love with her. Hans.
They're a lovely couple, actually. They're really are a lovely couple.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And, you know, he has just been... And not only is he, like... falsely accused and decapitated. He's literally decapitated as she is like running towards the gallows, screaming his name. Like, it is the most traumatic thing that this girl has to go through.
Well, it's a double trauma, isn't it? Because Hans had suffered that very same trauma of witnessing his father's execution.
Yes.
And so there's kind of, they are soulmates, literally soulmates.
Yeah.
Because they both suffered the same trauma of losing someone that they love to Madame la Guillotine. Mm-hmm. And it's really tragic. Christina is... Whatever else we can say about this film, Christina is one of the most tragic characters in any Hammer film we've seen so far.
Definitely.
Really, really, she's heartbreaking.
She is.
Absolutely heartbreaking, Christina. I love her to bits, and what happens to her she did not deserve in any measure whatsoever.
No, because Baron Frankenstein reacts to this tragedy by basically going, oh, lovely, what a lovely, very quick turnaround of getting a fresh body that we can now put Hans' soul into. How convenient.
He's just an opportunistic little shit, isn't he, in this?
Yeah.
He really... He gets a wonderful line where Hertz questions the morality of what they're doing, and he just says, what's right got to do with it? You know, he's just so horrible. He's just so nasty in this, and I love that. I love that Frankenstein is a complete git in this one, because I want my Baron Frankenstein to be unconscionable, and he is very much so in this.
He is. What's right got to do with it? Sorry, I've just got Tina Turner in my head now. What's right got to do with it? It could be like, you could write that on Baron Frankenstein's tombstone. That should be his personal tagline, shouldn't it?
If he ever ends up being buried, because he'll keep finding ways to bring himself back, he's still around now, I'm sure of it. But if he ever had a tombstone, that, yes, it would be on there. What's right got to do with it? Because he just doesn't care about right and wrong. I don't think he understands right and wrong, because he's a scientist. There is no right and wrong in science.
Yeah.
There is just science. And he's so cold and so manipulative. And yet at the same time, so utterly charming.
I know. This is what you said earlier about, because he has these kind of two new sort of assistants that we meet. We've got Thorley Walters, Dr. Hertz, and that's actually how we meet Hans, right? Played by Robert Morris.
That's right, yeah.
They're kind of both his assistants. And one thing you can always say about Baron Frankenstein is that he always recognises, I think, potential in the people that he kind of brings in to assist him with his work. And this is another thing that I find tragic about the Hans character is Frankenstein says about him, like, he's quite brilliant. He's this very sort of, simple, kind of countryside guy. We know that he had this sort of tragedy when he was a little boy, and, it probably, having lost his father in that very brutal and graphic way. But then obviously, like, even like security and financially, like, that's going to have had a knock-on effect. So he can't have had an easy life. But Frankenstein says about him at one point, he says, he's actually quite brilliant. And so you sort of think like, okay, fair enough. Hans has maybe thrown his hat in with not the most sensible of people if he wanted to have a sort of patron. But you sort of think like he could have had a future, and him and Christina could have had a future.
That's what's so tragic about it, isn't it? That they are so clearly deeply in love in a way that very few characters are in Hammer films at all, really.
Yeah.
Even the married couples don't seem to be quite as besotted with each other as these two are.
Yeah.
They're completely head over heels with each other, and he sees right past her supposed failings, physical failings. He doesn't care about that at all. This is proper, genuine love. And then to have it all so cruelly snatched away from them, and then sort of put back together by this horrible Frankenstein guy, and then torn apart again at the end. It's awful. So sad.
Awful.
Let's get some tissues. I might cry.
You mentioned just now about this slightly ambiguous science behind the entire situation. But so Frankenstein's working on souls now, as we've mentioned.
Yes. Yeah.
And what he seems to have worked out is, and this is why he's frozen at the beginning, because he's dead. He's physically dead for exactly an hour. It's got to be exactly an hour for some arbitrary reason. Yeah. And what he realizes when they revive him is that he's still got his soul, right? It's still in there, so it can survive for up to an hour. And so there's this whole thing after Hans has been executed. That they need to get the body. So Dr. Hertz goes off and he has to have a word with the kind of coroner or the whoever's sort of looking after the body, so that he can get it within an hour. Like, this is very important. And then Frankenstein has fashioned this sort of great big, it almost looks like a sort of satellite dish kind of thing that's in his lab. And it whirs, and it's all a bit sort of steam powered, but it generates this big light, and you sort of point that at the body, and then he creates a kind of force field.
Sort of. It's very ill-defined what's going on here.
The soul lives in the force field until you can get a body to put the soul in.
Don't try and make any sense of this. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just complete gibberish, most of it. But it's entertaining gibberish, but it's still gibberish, I'm afraid.
Speaking metaphysically, He's guillotined. Hans is guillotined. And I tell you what, if anyone knows anything about me, you know how much I love a decapitation. I think it all goes back to The Omen and seeing that 10 years old and the greatest decapitation, nay, maybe the greatest kill ever in a horror film ever on screen.
You could be right.
So good.
Yeah.
Poor old David Warner and the pain of glass.
Just to name drop for a second, when I met David Warner, because, you know, me and the stars, obviously, it was at a signing, and I chose a photograph of him, I think from The Omen. Yes, he was from The Omen, but he's just like a head and shoulders shot. And he actually said to me at the time, he said, most people go for this one. There's a picture of him with his head flying through the air. And I thought, well, that's not actually you, is it, David? That's, you know, that's just like a fake head. And he thought that was hilarious. But there you are. Me entertaining the stars, you know. So.
I love that. Was he nice?
God, he was lovely.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I can't remember if I told this story. I'm going to tell it now because you mentioned him, and we're not going to talk about it because he didn't do a Hammer film, did he?
No.
So I'm going to tell this story. I'm going for it. Shush now, listen. When I went up to the desk, he was chatting to the young guy who was sitting there. They always have a kind of a minder looking after them. And I just let them get on with the chatting, and I was standing there very patiently. And this guy suddenly noticed me and said, oh, you've got a customer. And David Warner stood up, looked me in the eye and said, I am so sorry. That was very rude of me. How are you? What's your name? And we got to chatting, and later, and in fact, I said to him at the end, when he was the first signature I went for that day, and I said, well, that's it, I can go home now because I've got what I came for, that's brilliant. And he said to me, oh no, please go and talk to everybody else, they're lovely. And a little while later on, I'm wandering around, and I did go to other people and get things signed, but I'm walking around, and there he is looking through a box of film stills. I went and stood next to him to look through a box of film magazines, and he spotted me and he said, you did talk to everybody else, didn't you? And I thought, oh, he remembers me. And okay, it was only like half an hour later, but he must have seen dozens and dozens of people in that time. He was charming. I bloody loved him. He was so sweet.
I am so delighted.
Just the way he shook my hand and said, I am so sorry, that was very rude of me. I thought, yep, that's the David Warner I hoped you would be.
Exactly.
You are lovely. And I would have quite happily just stood there for an hour listening to you talk to this guy because, you know, you're David Warner and that's fine. But anyway, he's not in this film, but I thought I would share that anyway because we all love David Warner, don't we?
I mean, I would think so. I always love it when you hear there are celebrities that you love and you find out they're actually really nice in real life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They live up to your expectations.
Exactly.
But anyway, meanwhile, back at the plot.
Back to the metaphysics of Frankenstein Created Woman. So, Hans gets decapitated, which I think begs the question, where does the soul live in the body, Kev? You're asking
me the question that has plagued philosophers since the dawn of time. You're asking me, a nerdy bloke who will talk about Doctor Who till the cows come home, and who loves Hammer films, but I haven't got a faintest idea about anything spiritual or metaphysical. I haven't got a spiritual bone in my body. I really haven't. Where does the soul reside?
According to Anthony Hines, who wrote the script, apparently not in the head.
Not in there. Well, you know, in the olden days, they used to believe it was in the heart.
Yes.
You know, later on, as we discovered the importance of the mind, we thought it lived there in the mind. Some of us might argue there is no such thing at all. It's a good question. I'm not the man to answer that. We need to get somebody in who's actually quite clever, not just a nerd, really.
I didn't actually expect an answer, Kev. I just thought it was very interesting that obviously in this universe it's not in the head.
It's not in the head. No, I like the fact that you didn't expect an answer, but you let me try and waffle for a little bit without stopping me. I like that. That was, yeah. Cheers for that, mate. Cheers, buddy. Right, okay. But yes, it is a philosophical question. Where is the soul? It's not in the brain. It's not in the mind in this case. Although,
not in this case,
that contradicts the Revenge of Frankenstein, doesn't it?
Well, yes.
Where he takes the mind of a man, puts it in a new body, and the man remains the man.
Or takes takes the mind of a orangutan and puts it in a chimpanzee.
Remains. God knows how that was supposed to work. That's haunted me ever since I first saw that. But it still remains an orangutan. We assume it can't talk to tell us, but we assume it did. So it contradicts that. But this is a question for a podcast not about Hammer films, I suspect. I don't have an answer. You don't want one anyway, so that's fine.
I mentioned Anthony Hines there. He's back on writing duty. Are you a fan of the sort of screenplay and the script of this one?
It has some serious problems. It's not a script you can think about too much because it just doesn't make any sense, really. I mean, even down to little things. One of the bits that always makes me laugh, and I'm not sure it's meant to be a funny moment, is when Christina is brought back to life. Her physical deformities have gone, and her hair has changed colour.
Kevin.
She was a brunette, now she's a blonde. And there's a line from Frankenstein where he says, "See, the hair has changed colour," as if we were supposed to expect it. It's like, you haven't mentioned that the hair was going to change colour. What? It's like, and that's the only explanation we get. See, the hair has changed colour. Like, okay, fair enough, Frankenstein. I don't really know what to say to that, but there you are.
It's absolutely bonkers, that moment. Because
it is, isn't it?
And also, I must say, there's something not necessarily sort of in the script, but suggested that this whole thing of blondes are sexier, blondes have more fun, like this whole kind of old stereotype, because you've got Christina in her original form, as you say, she's a brunette or a redhead. And there's a thing about her hair as well, because they actually draw attention to it, because she sort of draws it in front of her face.
That's right. She uses it as a mask, doesn't she?
She does. She sort of hides behind it. And then, as you say, zero explanation about why, when he takes off her bandages, she is now a platinum blonde. And all of a sudden, she's this sort of beautiful, voluptuous thing in a sexy dirndl, sort of seducing all these guys and killing them. I'm like, come off it. What?
Well, that brings me back to a point I raised earlier. Who is actually doing the seducing?
Right.
Because my understanding of it is, I could have misinterpreted this completely, that when she's in murder mode, that's Hans in the driving seat.
Yeah.
In which case, the seduction part is all part of that. He's Hans seducing these guys. If so, he's very good at it. Which raises questions that the film doesn't even ask, but which might have made a really interesting subplot. How did Hans know how to seduce these men? Interesting. We're not going to go too far down that road, because that's a can of worms, isn't it? But
it's a good point. It's a good...
Yeah.
I suppose it depends slightly what you mean when you say driving seat.
Who's in charge of the body at that point?
Yeah, exactly. Because...
I can hear the cogs whirring. I can hear them from here.
I'm thinking.
Yep. Clunk, clunk, clunk.
Chug, 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 chug. Right. Is it that he's in the driving seat, as in, like, Hans's soul becomes fully conscious, and therefore it's literally him in a woman's body?
Mm-hmm.
Or, because you sort of hear him talking to her, don't you?
That's right, yeah.
And at first it's off screen, and so there's this amazing bit. It's almost like a little bit of a sort of faster pussycat kill, because he goes, kill Christina, kill.
Yeah.
But you kind of hear it off screen.
Yeah.
And you know that he is able to talk through his voice out of her mouth even before you see it, because
That's right.
he like freaks out the guys, doesn't he, by like saying their names in his voice.
That's right, yeah. It's all very woolly.
Yeah.
The thinking behind it is very woolly. It's not at all... I can't work out, are they co-inhabiting this body?
Right.
Because there's a lovely little moment where post-operation Christina says, "Please, who am I?" Which I think is a lovely little moment, because she doesn't remember who she was from before. And is that because that Christina has gone? That she's now a blank slate onto which they've transposed Hans?
Mm-hmm.
In which case, is it just Hans in there? Is it? I don't think it is. I think Christina's in there as well. But how does the dynamic work? I can't get my head around it, I must admit.
I know. And just to sort of carry on your thought process there, I agree that I think Christina's in there somewhere because of the way she then ends things at the end.
Yeah.
But I also think there's almost this third being, which is Hans is in there because they transferred his soul in. Christina's in there because there's some sort of vestiges of her soul in there. And then there's almost this sort of third creation, right? Which is, as you say, this kind of this blank slate person who's kind of like an amnesiac or a kind of memoryless, personalityless vessel that then has their own thing. But like it strikes me that it's that person, that third person, who when she's got Hans's decapitated head like skewered on top of her dressing room mirror, which is chef's kiss moment. And she's literally sort of sat there having a conversation with it. It's like this person that, again, you know, Frankenstein has created is this kind of third thing that doesn't have its own personality or memories, and so is like having to kind of create itself in the midst of all of this murderous stuff that they're being forced to do because they, oh my God, I don't know.
Maybe this third thing actually doesn't have a soul.
Maybe.
And it's the two souls of Christina and Hans who are kind of fighting it almost.
Yeah.
You know? But it's just so woolly. The writing is so woolly that I say woolly, I mean it's open to interpretation. I suspect if we got a room full of 100 die-hard Hammer fans, we'd split almost three ways as to which theory that was.
Who's actually
is it Hans? Is it Christina? Is it a third party? Yeah. So I think, you know, it's open to interpretation. It's a very, very, very strange setup, and I'm not sure. I did say in my notes, I'm not sure that Frankenstein really thought through this plan at all. I think that goes for Anthony Hines as well, to be honest. I think it was one of those ideas. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but now that we're actually telling a story using it, we're having to gloss over a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, we're having to sort of, the audience will have to take a lot of things on trust, really. So, yeah.
Where does the horror come from in the film for you? We talked a bit about the decapitations, big tick in my column. There's a decent sort of lashing of Kensington gore all over this film.
Yeah.
Is this? But as you say, like it's not really a body horror film. So where does the horror sort of come from for you, Kev?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that last week we talked about The Witches, where I complained that it felt a bit reined in and not Hammer enough. And this one is like absolutely 100% Hammer. You know, even though it's not a body horror film, there are body parts flying in all directions and gore all over the place.
Yeah.
But the real horror doesn't come from that. I think by this point, audiences were becoming slightly inured to the idea that Hammer were going to do that anyway. We're going to go see Hammer, we're going to see the red stuff. That's fine, it's not shocking anymore. What for me is where the horror comes from. It's almost like a possession film. In fact, I was thinking when you were saying that, you know, there's a third entity in there with Hans and Christina, it was beginning to get a little bit like The Exorcist, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where, you know, how many people were inside Regan at any given time? You know, there seemed to be dozens of them at one point.
Or like Ghostbusters, which says, I want you inside me. And he says, it sounds like there's one too many people in there already.
One of the greatest lines in horror cinema there. I bloody love that. But yeah, so this is more like a possession film than a body horror film. There's elements of body horror in it, to be sure. But this is, you know, Christina has had her body invaded and a degree of free will taken away from her. That's pretty dark and scary stuff, particularly when you think that in some ways Christina had her body taken away from her before any of this had happened.
Yeah.
Because she is disabled in this film. You know, so the fact that she couldn't get to the guillotine quick enough to maybe save Hans is down to the fact that she couldn't run properly. You know, so her body has already been taken away by nature.
Well,
now he's been taken away by Frankenstein.
I think there's a third thing there, because not only has it been taken away by nature in the, you know, her mobility is impaired. Mm-hmm. The sort of her agency and her bodily autonomy has also been kind of taken away from her by society and by the people who are so horrible to her. Yeah. Because she is so racked with
That's right. Yeah.
shame and hatred over her own physicality, her own body, the way she looks, the way she moves, her mobility, the way she's, you know, there's that horrible bit where they force her to serve the wine, knowing full well that she's going to have trouble, you know, pouring it without it being spilled.
I know you said earlier that the toffs bit was the bit you sort of found a bit more dull than the rest of it, perhaps. But I would have to say, I think we've seen some absolute monsters, human monsters in Hammer films, usually from the upper classes. Yeah. These, I have to say, are three of the vilest, most loathsome and entitled creeps we've ever seen so far.
You are so right.
They are monstrous. They are far worse than Frankenstein. Frankenstein just doesn't care. These guys care enough to make that poor girl's life hell.
Yeah.
You know, and she's a lovely, sweet girl. I have to say, even with the facial deformities, I actually find her more attractive before she's reborn. You know, she's so 100%. Gorgeous and lovely.
She is so gorgeous and lovely.
And they're just so horrible to her. And in some ways, this is the way men are now on the internet, that they will target women. As we're recording this, the new Supergirl film has just opened.
Yeah.
And I am seeing people online, men, grown adults, saying that Millie Alcock shouldn't be Supergirl because she's ugly. Now, I'm kind of somewhat baffled as to what their idea of feminine beauty is, because I think Millie Alcock's bloody gorgeous, to be honest with you. I think she's lovely. This is what we see men do. That they will target someone who, for whatever reason, has offended them in some way, and they will try and demoralise them about their appearance. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've got here with these three arseholes. These are the forerunners of the modern internet trolls who just try to demean women by taking apart their appearance, which, you know, sort of, it's not just women, but a lot of people are very, very, very insecure about the way they look.
Yeah.
And to do that is just so cruel. Just so bloody cruel. I just get to know this woman. She's bloody lovely.
Well, yeah, this is kind of what I'm saying. Firstly, sorry, what the fuck has it got to do with whether she's a good Supergirl or not, what she looks like? I mean, come off it.
I mean, just for a start on the very basics, she is bloody gorgeous. But she also looks like she's a lot of fun.
I think that's besides the point, to be honest.
But I think she looks like she's a lot of fun. She looks like she's doing a good job. The bit we saw of her in Superman, I enjoyed that very much indeed. I thought that was bloody hilarious. And the clips I've seen of her, she looks like she's doing a fine job. But no, we're going to claim that a perfectly good-looking young woman is ugly because we have issues with the way things go. Sorry, guys, but you're wankers, all of you. Sorry. Anyway, soapbox away for another time.
But it does come back to exactly the point that I was making, which is you're so right about how she loses her body time and time again in all of these different ways, because I think the reason she is so insecure isn't necessarily because of the way that she would inherently feel about her own body. It's the way that she is made to feel about her own body.
Yeah. She's made to feel shame, which is something we see a lot still today, the whole body shaming thing. And, you know, so Hammer were on the ball with this, I have to say. They were ahead of their time. They didn't necessarily call it out as strongly as they could, but at least they featured it. At least they made us think about it.
It's interesting as well, isn't it? We had kind of in Revenge, excuse me, I can't remember the name of the character, but the kind of the main guy in that who has the brain put into him. Sure. There's a similar thing there where he was kind of hunched.
That's right, yeah.
And slightly deformed and disabled, he was quote unquote cured by the surgery. Yeah. Then in Evil, we had obviously our lovely young blind girl.
Yes.
And now again, we've got Christina with her disabilities. And so I do love that time and again, the Frankenstein films are using these characters with their own physical issues to kind of hold a mirror up to the wider Frankenstein conceit.
Indeed.
Right? So they are either like the girl in Evil of Frankenstein, where she sort of feels this affinity with the creature, or, you know, you've got kind of more physical kind of differences that are kind of putting them kind of parallel to, you know, the traditional Frankenstein's creature, that kind of thing. And I like that the screenplays and the kind of the characterization does keep coming back to that. And I like that every time, whether it was the guy in Revenge or the girl in Evil or Christina in Woman, every time it's not just that the disability or the impairment is like their one thing, right? It doesn't define them. It might have given them extra struggles in life, like, you know, the blind girl. She's like a beggar, right? You know, because she can't make a living. In this, you know, Christina is really struggling because she hates the way she looks, etc.
Yeah.
But I think every single time, all of those characters, you and I, Kev, said, aren't they brilliant? Aren't they lovely? Aren't they sympathetic? Yeah. And that comes from the screenplay.
Of course it does. I think Anthony Hines was very good at that. I think Anthony Hines had a kind of an affinity for the outsider, for the social pariahs, as it were.
Which is basically the Frankenstein's creature.
Which is Frankenstein itself, exactly. You know, and Jimmy Sangster brings that in, doesn't he, in the first Frankenstein film in particular.
Very much
because
so.
Where the monster is less monstrous than ostracised. You know, and Anthony Hines has picked up on that theme, and he does a really good job of that, I think, of actually looking at these marginal people that society have kind of treated very shoddily. Mm-hmm. And then they become monstrous, not because they were deformed or, you know, not so much the girl in Evil, but other characters become monstrous, not because they were inherently monstrous because of their deformities or whatever, but because what we did to them.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's what society did. It created these monsters out of perfectly normal, lovely people. Mm-hmm. I like that. You're right. That's a really good point. I like it. I'm sorry, I kind of hijacked that a little bit because I was just thinking it through in my own head. It's a really good point. I like it.
No, I'm really pleased.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Susan Denberg then as Christina.
Oh, yes, let's.
She is our titular woman.
Yes.
And Susan Denberg plays both kind of versions of Christina. Christina proper, and then the kind of the blonde one, the revived, the revived woman after the surgery and the transference. Tell me a bit about Susan Denberg and what you think about her in this role.
Well, first, I mean, she's bloody gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
It isn't just stunning. I think she's great in this, actually, even though she's dubbed throughout by Nikki van der Zyl, who did a lot of this dubbing for Hammer and various other places. Her real name was Dietlinde Zechner. And she was either Polish or German-Austrian, depending on your sources. I think she was actually Polish. Her accent was deemed a bit too heavy, which is odd, as the film is very clearly set in a German-speaking country. So, the really strange thing is that this had a sort of a knock-on effect as well, that her dad, who's played by Alan McNaughton, he, on the set, he affected a Mittel-European accent to go along with Denberg's natural speaking voice.
Right.
So when they decided to redub her, they had to get him back in to redub his own dialogue. Because now it's like, we don't need you to be doing the, you know,
what a load of extra work
accent.
For no reason.
For no reason, absolutely. But she's stunning in this. She really is. The press book for the film proudly proclaims from au pair to star in 6 months. And she was an au pair at one point. But she'd actually done a lot of other stuff as well. She was a modeler. She was a model. She did a lot of, should we say, exotic dancing.
Lovely.
In gentlemen's specialist bars. I'll leave the rest for you to work out. The stardom didn't last very long, sadly. She'd been one of Mudd's women in the Star Trek episode of that name and had a few small roles in film and TV, but this was the end of the road, sadly.
Oh.
She didn't work again after this. Her co-star, Robert Morris, who plays Hans, he remembered that she was very mixed up with that rather fast Roman Polanski crowd and also very much into the drug scene. Oh. She'd often arrive on the set in the morning somewhat the worse for wear.
Oh!
Now, she did admit in an interview that when she moved back to Austria, she was off her head on LSD for a good amount of the time. She did like to imbibe a little bit. And she dropped off the radar so far and so quickly that by the end of the 60s, there were reports that she was dead, possibly having taken her own life. I'm glad to say, absolutely untrue. And at the time of recording this, in the summer of 2026, she's still with us.
Yeah.
I'm glad to say. And hopefully she's aware of how much love there is for her for this film. Hammer wanted to use her again in a film called Aisha, Daughter of She.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
She's going to play the title role. That eventually became the far less than amazing Vengeance of She in 1968 with Alinka Barova in the role. I think maybe Susan Denberg had become a bit of a liability for them at that point. I know that Christopher Neame, who was one of their production managers at the time, said that casting her was one of their worst mistakes. Oh. Because I think she was a bit hard work. I would say it was one of their best decisions because she is fantastic in this film.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say that does not come across on screen.
It doesn't at all. I don't care what she was doing in her private life. That was her private life. She does what she wants to do. But on screen, she comes across as perfectly charming, really lovable. I fell in love with Christina, less so in the sort of the second incarnation of Christina, but that first incarnation of Christina, I would quite happily have taken off to a cottage in the country and lived with her for the rest of my life. She was gorgeous, she was lovely, she was wonderful, and she brings across that beautifully, really well. So it's a lovely performance, and she had an interesting life, but I think this is a really good performance. If you're out there, Susan, and you happen to hear this, some of us love you so much. Honestly, we really do. We really do.
Yeah, she's really great. Very charming.
Very charming.
So you mentioned there Robert Morris as Hans.
Yep.
He looks familiar to me. What do I know Robert Morris from?
Not very much.
Maybe he's just got one of those faces.
He's going to go on to be in Quatermass and the Pit. So if you've seen that, you may...
I have seen that,
so you may recognise him from that. He has a very lovely story about how he got the job, which I think is worth repeating. He told Hammer Horror magazine in 1985, Irene Lamb, the casting director, arranged for me to go down to Bray and meet up with Terry Fisher and Tony Nelson Keys. That's Anthony Nelson Keys, who was one of the producers there. Not having long left RADA, I was very much into motivations and subtext and all that. So when they asked me what I thought about the character, I went into this long, involved thing about why my character Hans acted the way he did. Irene told me afterwards that once I'd gone, Terry had turned to Tony and said, bloody hell, did we think of all of that? I think that's one of the reasons I got the part, actually. I seem to be very much into it.
I love that.
What a lovely story. Isn't that great? You can imagine poor Terence Fisher and Anthony Nelson Keys, who are old school guys, not really into the whole method thing at all, and not into that, sort of like, can't you just act, darling, that kind of thing, And that was Laurence Olivier, wasn't it, on Marathon Man?
Yeah, to Dustin Hoffman.
Oh, where Dustin Hoffman, who said he stayed in character, said, could you just try acting, dear boy? It's fantastic. But these guys were old school, so they would have just been used to actors turning up and doing what they do.
Just reading the lines, and he's there and he's
just
like,
reading the lines,
well, obviously, he sees his father killed at a young age, and
that's right,
must have had such a, he must be so kind of driven, and that's why he gets in with Frankenstein, and oh my goodness, could you imagine the circular nature of time and inherent inherited trauma.
But I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all. There's nothing wrong with that kind of thing. But these were old school British filmmakers who were probably just sitting there thinking, just read the lines, love, read the lines.
Yeah.
Get on.
He looks the part,
Come on, it's tea break time. Get on with it. I love it. It's a lovely story. It's really good. And
that is a lovely story.
It shows that sort of Robert was quite, I think, sort of self-deprecating as well, which I always appreciate. I always like.
Same, yes, very much so. But again, just to quickly echo what you said earlier, Kev, the central relationship is really important to this film, actually. And I think, I think that Christina and Hans have to get across, right, that they are genuinely in love with each other. And I think both of these actors do a really good job at that and engender a lot of sympathy. In
fairness, I think there are a couple of times where Hans looks at Christina with real, genuine love in his eyes. And I think that must be fairly easy for Robert Morris because he was looking at Susan Denberg. Right. Which I think was just going to make life a lot easier. Could you just look at it and go, just sort of swoon a little bit because she was just so stunningly, unworldly gorgeous in a way. And so I think, but yes, that does come across, that relationship comes across so well in this film. So credit to both of those actors that they managed to make us believe that these very ordinary people are actually more important than the Baron. Yeah. They are the most important thing in that little world that we're looking into. And they're brilliant. They're really good. Let's talk about Cushing then. I mean, I know that we always, have nothing but wonderful things to say. And I think he's very good again here, as he always is. As I've already just mentioned specifically, like those lovely little moments where he'll just get across that his hands hurt, right? It's got nothing really to do with the plot of the film other than he's not able to do the surgery himself and has to kind of direct Hertz to do it. So as always with Peter Cushing, there are those subtle little moments. We talk about his work with props and things, and this isn't quite that because it's just his reactions to when he'll sort of try and pick something up, but he winces, or he'll sort of hold his hands to himself, which is all like really subtly and beautifully done. I've not seen a copy of the script for this film, so if anybody out there has, maybe they could let us know whether that was on the page or whether that was Cushing bringing the character to life. I would love to know that. Yeah. I'd love to know whether it was written for him or whether it was Cushing. The part of me that is, Peter Cushing's greatest fan believes that was Cushing just being Cushing. Yeah. And just bringing that extra level of detail that I think most cinema goers may have missed even. Yeah. But it was there anyway. He did it anyway. Well, you've trained me well, Kev, now. I'm you spot them now, don't you? This is great. But it's interesting, isn't it, that we haven't seen Peter Cushing for a while? No. The last time we saw him was in The Gorgon, I think. God, yeah, it must have been. He's been away. He hadn't stopped making films or even horror and science fiction films. He's been away with The Enemy. He's been over at Amicus doing The Skull, which is a terrific film. And he did perhaps ill-advised new take on everybody's favourite Time Lord. Here it comes, the obligatory Doctor Who mention. He plays the very human Doctor Who in those two Dalek films of the 60s. He was also in a really good film by Terence Fisher called Island of Terror, which I can highly recommend. That's a great film. Really good. So he was still making films, still making horror films, but he just wasn't doing it for Hammer at this time, and I think this kind of was his bit of a comeback. So it's kind of appropriate that he comes back as Frankenstein. It is, yeah, very much so. And he just seems to just slip back into it so easily, so naturally. He obviously... The continuity is all over the place, but it's like we've never left him, really. Absolutely. He seems to just know the character so inside out by this point. He can just... Exactly. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like he's phoning it in, Not at all. No, he's... good God, Peter Cushing phoning it in. How dare you? Peter Cushing wouldn't have had the change for the phone. He wouldn't know. That man would not know how to phone in a performance. If his life depended on it, he would not have been able to do it. He was just too bloody good. Yeah. He just So just literally the consummate professional. This is going to happen every time, Every time we mention Peter Cushing from now on, I'm just going to go like this. This is my biggest man crush, I think, is Peter Cushing. Just the man was amazing. He was a god in human form. Move on quickly. Stop me.
I agree with you, though, that it's nice to see Frankenstein back to his proper sort of,
evil
meanness.
Nastiness. Yeah. All that whining about his bloody furniture. I mean, come on, Victor, sort your life out. And it seems he has. It seems he's gotten back to... And by the time we next see him, oh my God, he's going to be as awful as he's ever been in any of the films.
Yeah, right off the deep end.
Right off the deep end, yeah, absolutely. So prepare yourself for that. We're going to see the most evil incarnation of Frankenstein ever in the next film in the series. It's just astonishing.
Thorley Waters, always a pleasure, never a chore, obviously.
I think this might be his best performance in a Hammer film, actually.
He is so good in this. Dr. Hertz is this very kind of bumbling old character in this.
Yeah.
He's very sort of absent-minded. He describes himself at one point... when Frankenstein is trying to explain the idea of putting a soul from one body into another. And Hertz very much seems to be there as a pair of hands and not necessarily like a sort of mind to sort of add to, Frankenstein's kind of theoretical.
That's exactly what he is. He's just a pair of... He's literally the hired hands. Literally.
Yes.
Literally.
And he describes himself as, he says, I'm a broken down, drunken old muddlehead and you have to spell it out for me. And it's... I know.
He's so lovely.
He is lovely. Old Geppetto.
Old Geppetto,
and, I completely agree that it's one of... Walter's best performances, because what he's able to do is convince you that he's not the brilliant Thorley Waters, if that makes sense.
That's right.
He is this old muddlehead and he's forgetful and he doesn't have a lot of confidence, and it's different to the roles that we've seen from him in the past, and I think therefore it makes it all the more impressive.
And I'll talk about, when we come to our favourite moments, he gets one of my favourite moments in the film, actually. So you probably know which the bit is. You may well be ahead of me, but there is a lovely little bit he gets, which is terrific.
It can't. I'm in anticipation. I don't know. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
You'll know it when I start talking about it.
Then we've got the three gits.
Oh yes. God, are they monstrous? We've been through
horrible.
They are just so awful. And yet one of them is played by Mr. Derek from Basil Brush. Derek Foles.
What?
It's Johann. Yeah. So he was Mr. Derek for Basil Brush. And he was Bernard Woolley in Yes Minister. This very really nice sort of ministerial guy. Later he was a very gentle cop drama called Heartbeat, playing Sergeant Oscar Blaketon. And here, he's bloody horrible.
He's like the main one, right?
Yeah.
Bad guy.
Yeah. And they're all as bad as each other, though, to be fair. They're all equally loathsome. It's like
they are. Yeah, you've got Derek Foles as Johann. Heartbeat, by the way. Oh my God, that was classic sort of tea time TV, wasn't
it? Tea time TV. Let's not go too far down the classic route. But yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
And then we've got Peter Blythe as Anton and Barry Warren as Carl.
Yeah.
This trio of entitled bullies.
They're kind of the forerunners to people we're going to see later. We're going to see in Taste the Blood of Dracula. We're going to have a trio rather, of very entitled, nowhere near as monstrous as these people. They're just hypocrites in this film. But a trio of really sort of horrible older men who become involved with Dracula's resurrection scheme and live just about long enough to pay the price.
Ooh.
And in fact, there's a scene in this where the three thugs beat Cleve to death. They beat Christina's father to death in the pub. And that's echoed in Taste the Blood of Dracula, where the three, not quite so thuggish, but still pretty unpleasant men, beat Dracula's servant to death. I shall say no more, because it's kind of interesting how that develops, but we'll talk about that in greater detail.
We'll put a pin in that for...
Remember this for when we get there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah,
they are awful people. They're just they are the worst of men, aren't they? They really are just terrible.
And
they're
as you
bullies.
say, that attack is basically the kind of the crux, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of then what kind of snowballs from there.
That's right.
Because they beat Cleve to death, and Hans is framed.
That's
for
right. Yeah.
it because he's been there the night before, seeing Christina, and actually we get a little bit of sort of raciness in this film, because it's not just that they're in her bedroom and they kiss and the camera goes away and you don't come back to them till the next morning. You come back to them later and they are naked in bed together.
Yeah, good for them.
So you know, quite right.
Yeah.
But I love that actually we're getting to the point where you're under kind of no illusions about what these young people are doing. You know, they're in love and they are making love.
That's right.
You know, they've just had a shag and so they're both still naked in bed together. Like, fair play.
The only thing that gets me through the whole tragic arc of Christina's story, and it is bloody tragic, is the fact that she and Hans did experience that physical moment together.
Yeah.
At least that one time.
Yeah.
Maybe more, who knows. But the fact that they were able to consummate their love like that. God, we're turning into a pair of old soppies now, aren't we? But it's a proper little love story, and I'm here for it. I think they're terrific. I love them.
Yeah, same. But yes, of course. So he's been there, but because he can't or won't admit to his alibi, which was being in bed with his girlfriend.
That's right.
They're out of wedlock. He doesn't want to kind of, besmirch her name and all of this kind of thing. He isn't able to give the lawmen and Peter Madden's chief of police a kind of alibi, and he just refuses to say where he was. And so they sort of have to say, you get the impression, I think it's the judge is almost quite sympathetic to the cause, but because there's no evidence, can't say.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Hans can't say, he sort of has to say, right, well, there's only one thing for it then, so they chop his head off.
And that's love, isn't it? I mean, that he's willing to sacrifice himself to save Christina's good name. I mean, it backfires big time, but his heart was in the right place, if not necessarily his head. Oh, bad taste, Kev, bad taste. Bad taste. But, so I think that speaks volumes about Hans the man, that he was quite happy not happy, but he was willing to sacrifice himself to save the reputation of the woman he loved. Mm-hmm. How wonderful is that?
Well, and luckily he gets some revenge in the end.
He does.
Because he gets his soul pulled out and put in a little jam jar or something for a bit. And then...
A little jam jar? I must have missed this cut of the film.
Look, we both said that the science was a little bit inspecific, okay? So...
Yeah, there's inspecific. That's just bloody ludicrous. But, we seem to have crossed a line somewhere. Jam jar.
I failed science at school. Okay, so
you don't say.
He has his soul taken out of his dead, decapitated body and kept in a lovely scientific force field. And then poor Christina throws herself off the bridge. The soul gets put into her. She turns blonde and beautiful. And then we get to this lovely sort of revenge spree where basically she takes out each of the guys one by one, with him either in the driving seat or egging her on. It does, coming back to the whole who's in the driving seat thing, I do think it's Hans's revenge, not Christina's revenge.
Yes.
Even if she is in there somewhere, I don't think that actually she's doing anything to do with the killing. I think the revenge is all his.
Yeah.
And then you've got the third entity lady, the blonde.
You're kind of the vessel
in
for
her
it.
sexy dirndl.
She's the vessel for it. She's the instrument
She's the
of the revenge. Yeah, Christina, I think, would have been too nice to have taken revenge. She obviously didn't like these men, but I don't think she had any malice towards them.
No, she just didn't want it. She just wanted to get away from him, if anything, right?
She just wanted to be left alone, didn't she?
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Hans, because Hans is a bloke, I think he thought, right, no, I've got to avenge the woman I love. And, thank God he did. Otherwise, it'd be a very short film.
Yeah. So the first, and as you say, she does it all because she's sexy now.
Yeah.
Quote unquote. She does it all through seduction, and obviously these are three horny, lascivious blokes, and so they fall for it every time. So you get the first one is Johan, and he's drunk in the inn, and then he comes out of the inn, and she's sort of leaning against the bridge, looking all sexy, and she takes him back to her lodgings. Oh, no. Oh, my God. There's this amazing bit where she goes, well, there's an empty house around the corner.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Which is obviously the house where he had murdered Cleve.
That's right.
And so at first, he's like, oh, no, I don't want to go there. And she's like, all right, then. He goes to walk off, and he goes... And, his squeamishness doesn't last long, let's put it that way.
Of course it doesn't. No, of course it doesn't.
So she takes him to her old house where her dad was killed, and she goes into the other room to get into something more comfortable, and he goes looking for her, and that's when you hear Hans's voice say, kill, Christina, kill.
That's right. Yeah.
And then she... I don't even know if we know how he dies. I think the first one is a bit more...
That's right, a bit more,
off-screen.
It is, yeah, if I remember right.
Then Carl is next, and this is the guy that she kills with an axe.
Yes, that's right, yes.
There's a brilliant shot of Susan Denberg when the kind of fury...
Oh, God, yeah.
Of Hans is over Susan Denberg or Christina's face.
That's terrifying,
as
isn't it?
As she comes at him. It's absolutely terrifying.
Because we've not seen Christina look like that.
No.
We didn't know that she had that in her, and she didn't have it in her until Hans turns up.
Exactly.
Really chilling.
And an incredible expression of just cold, murderous fury from Susan Denberg.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then there's a lovely, I guess, jump cut from the axe coming down to the next scene where she's chopping wood, which was very nice.
That's right, yeah, it's a lovely cut, isn't it?
Really lovely. And then you come back to the crime scene later, and he's written Hans in his own blood on the floor.
Again, he's trying to protect Christina. He's trying to confess that it was Hans that did it, not Christina. That's what that just popped into my head. I hadn't thought of that. That makes a mockery of who was in the driving seat, doesn't it? But
no. That's not why I'm hesitating. It's that I think I assumed it was Carl that had written it. I didn't realise that it was.
Oh no!
As in it was the victim.
So I don't know how. Well, he could know it was Hans, but no, I always assumed it was Hans that wrote that and was trying to deflect away from Christina.
Oh, I love that more.
Could be wrong, but I'm going with it because I like it.
Okay.
Yep.
But obviously, whoever wrote it, this alerts the cops.
Yep. And
so then you get the classic Frankenstein mob scene.
That's right.
Because everybody turns up at Frankenstein's.
Yep.
at the, his lodgings, and he gets into this classic thing where everybody's asking him questions, and he's getting very huff puff about it. And why don't you leave me alone to do my work?
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. But obviously, then he realizes that his experiment. Oh, what a surprise! Once again, has turned into something murderous and gone horribly wrong.
You'd think he'd have learned by now, wouldn't you? But you really would. The unluckiest scientist in the whole history of cinema.
I know. Amazing. And so Frankenstein goes out to try and find Christina / Hans / the blonde entity.
Yep.
And while he's looking, we get my favourite of the 3 kills, which is Peter Blythe's Anton. So he has gotten wind of what's happening and he is on the run. He's like, I'm getting out of Dodge, right?
Yeah.
It's not worth me sticking around here.
Yeah.
And he jumps in a coach, and as he sort of settles back and breathes a sigh of relief, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but this is one of my favourite moments of the film. He breathes a sigh of relief, and then all of a sudden you hear Christina's voice go, "Oh, hello," and she's in the coach as well.
In the coach, yeah. It doesn't bear thinking about how she knew he would be in the coach. Don't worry about that. It's a terrific moment. It's really good. You kind of know it's coming, but it's so satisfying still when it does.
100%. Oh yeah, I knew she was going to be there, but it's beautifully done.
Oh, of course.
Beautifully done.
Beautifully done. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Terence Fisher firing on all cylinders in that scene.
Correct. Then we get another scene, as we do in every Frankenstein film, I think, with Peter Cushing racing through the countryside on some sort of horse-drawn contraption. And Christina takes Anton for a picnic. Oh, we'll go for a little picnic. She seduced him in the coach.
Yeah.
He's immediately fallen madly in love with her. We'll go for a little picnic. And as she's sort of sitting on the grass, he's got his head in her lap, and she takes the knife out of the picnic basket, and what I thought was just quite a savage stabbing. She's actually cut off his head.
That's right. Yes.
Cut to the campest, most ridiculous moment in the entire movie, where I was howling, Kev. I don't think it's meant to be funny, but...
No, it's not.
But she is sat there. And do you know what it reminded me of? Was Sleepaway Camp.
Oh, yeah.
When Angela's got her boyfriend's head in
That's right.
their lap.
Yeah.
So Christina has got Anton's head in her hands, and out of her mouth, literally out of Susan Denberg's mouth, comes Hans's voice.
Yeah.
And she says something, I don't know, like, ha 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 ha, that's the last one, I've got you all, you bastards, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But in Hans's voice, out of her mouth. I almost fell off the sofa. I thought it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life.
It is indicative of the woolliness of the scripts, that we're still no wiser as to who actually has been committing these murders. Because that sort of almost concretely says it's Hans, but then... was it? Because we hear him urging Christina on to do it. And it's all so confusing, isn't it? It's,
very confusing.
Very confusing. Best not to think about it too much and just go with the flow. and have a good chuckle at the disembodied voice.
Exactly. I mean, you know, that's me sort of being a bit jovial about it. But how do you find that moment, Kev? Like, do you find that upsetting? Do you find it scary? Do you find it comical? Like, what's your reaction to that moment?
I think it's meant to be cathartic. I think, you know, Hans and... by default almost, Christina have had their revenge.
Yeah.
And I think it is setting us up for what comes next, which is a very tragic ending.
Yeah.
It is in a lot of ways, it is quite a risible moment, I will admit. It's just, I think the idea was sound, I just don't think it's pulled off terribly well.
Maybe that's it.
I think that's the problem, that it's like, it was a good idea, not terribly well handled. But I think it does set us up for where we go now, because it's like, Hans has had his revenge and he's dead. Christina has had her revenge and he's dead. We've got Blondie, who may or may not be her own person. Where do they go from here?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and that's the tragedy of this film, that they're sort of all three of them, their agency's removed from them. And particularly at the end, there's nothing left for any of them.
No, exactly.
Nothing left at all.
What's she going to do? What's this blonde person going to do? Like, go and open a florist's or something? You know,
exactly.
Like,
I mean, yeah. It's like, is she going to live for the rest of her life with Christina and Hans inside there?
Or is she going to get done for the murders, which is probably what will happen. And so she ends up,
almost certainly
guillotined herself.
Exactly. But, even if she had survived, Christina and Hans' relationship is rather lovely now. As time goes on, they'd have been bickering in there a little bit. I mean, can you imagine that going on in your head? This couple arguing at the back of your head the whole bloody time. Who would have wanted that, So,
them sort of, tired of each other 20 years later, moaning about, who's doing the washing up.
Yeah. I'm always doing that. I'm always bloody carrying on around you. I'm always doing all the picking up and carrying and all the washing. You're just going out and getting drunk, aren't you? Oh, shut up, you old bag.
It's not me that's leaving dirty socks all over the...
And these poor blonde woman just going insane, like, what's going on? Just leave me alone. The voices are driving me mad, literally.
I'd have watched that sequel. I would have. That
would have been hilarious, actually. That would have been really good. Christina Hansen and Blondie, 20 years later. That would be
exactly.
Great.
But no, you're right. In all seriousness, it's much more tragic than that because this is kind of what I was hinting at earlier when I said that I think that there is a bit of Christina still in there.
Oh,
because
definitely.
I think when she stands at the edge of the same bridge, I want to say.
Yeah, it's very like the same bridge. Yeah,
off of earlier.
Yeah.
As Frankenstein reaches her and sort of tries to get her to come to him, she just says, that's it, it's done. Like there's nothing.
Nothing more to do. Yeah,
left for me. She basically kills herself a second time. She jumps off of the same bridge a second time. So,
and while it's tragic, she does at last get some sense of agency.
Mm-hmm.
She denies Frankenstein the possibility of exploiting her any further.
That is so true.
Because we don't really know what Frankenstein is trying to achieve at the end. Does he want to kill her to destroy the evidence, or does he want to try and rehabilitate her? I suspect he would try to rehabilitate her because he wouldn't want to destroy his own creation.
Mm-hmm.
He's become God now. Frankenstein created woman.
Yeah.
They've conflated Frankenstein and God. He wouldn't want to destroy Christina, so he would have tried to spirit her away and try to, find ways to control her and all the rest of it. And I think at the very end, she just thought, no, I'm not having it.
Yeah.
I'm not having it, mate. You've ruined my life as it is. I take control now and I decide what happens. And what happens is that I end it all. And that's a sense of agency in a way.
Yeah. So both... the original Christina, Hans has had his revenge.
Yeah.
I think he says, actually, when the voice is coming out of her mouth, he says something like, you can be at peace now. So
that's right. Yeah.
That's sort of her and him sorted. And then, as you say, this third entity, there isn't really anything for them. So it's like, okay.
In that comedy sequel, I could just imagine Blondie saying to the other two, and you very nearly bloody killed yourselves and me with it. You didn't ask me, did you? You didn't ask my permission. You were just going to chuck yourself off that bridge. And
she's there with her curlers in, little apron.
Things I bloody do for you. You don't got no respect for me, have you?
Never a grateful word. I do want to just... I mentioned this earlier about just talking a little bit about the gender politics in the film because it's specifically called Frankenstein Created Woman. And I think at the beginning of this chat, I was of the opinion that the quote-unquote woman of the title was Christina.
Right.
Actually, I think that I've somehow convinced myself that the woman is Blondie.
Right.
But either way,
I don't think it's clear, and I think literally it is just because of the Roger Vadim film, and God Created Woman. I think that's the only reason they called it that. To be honest, it might have been better with another title. Sort of The Bride of Frankenstein would have worked just as well. But it's. I think it's probably an unfortunate title because it does suggest more than is actually going on in the film.
Yeah, it almost sort of forces you to pick who it's referring to.
That's right.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's a little bit unfortunate, to be honest. It's
that's a good point.
It was a clever, jokey title, but the joke doesn't work anymore because how many people still remember And God Created Woman? Lots of people obviously do. but an awful lot more people nowadays don't remember that film. So the title is kind of meaningless to a lot of people.
Is it out of the Bible? Or is it because I'm kind of familiar with the term "and God created woman"?
No, I don't think so. I think it's literally that in the Vadim film, the woman that is created is Brigitte Bardot.
Oh.
So God created woman. Well, of course he created Brigitte Bardot, didn't he?
Right.
Because, if you were God and you were able to create a human being, you would create Brigitte Bardot.
Well,
if you're a male God.
Maybe in the way she looks. I don't know about the rest of it, but...
Maybe, I mean, okay, later on we found out some things about it, but certainly the way she looks, and let's face it, blokes don't really care. We're just like, hey, look at the way she looks. We'll worry about the other stuff later. But, so I think it was just a sort of it was meant to be a sort of a jokey title. And God created woman, because look, here she is.
And then I've gone and overthought it.
Possibly. Yeah, and then Hammer just did it as a joke more than anything else. So, but it is unfortunate that nowadays we can sort of overthink those ideas.
Yeah,
because
we're doing a podcast about it, and so I'm trying to...
Because we're doing a podcast about it, yeah. So we're trying to sound all clever and intellectual. It really doesn't suit us, Becky. It really doesn't suit us. We should just, accept it that it's just a really funny title,
okay,
but
fine.
The joke doesn't work anymore.
Let's talk about some favourite moments in that case. So I've already said that... Anton being in the coach and then it turning out that Christina's in there is one of them. I thought that was really, really well done. Beautifully directed, beautifully performed, made me laugh.
Yeah.
I've also actually put in my list Hans' voice coming out of Christina's mouth at the end as she holds up the decapitated head. Not because I thought it was particularly effective necessarily in what it was trying to achieve, but I do think it was highly entertaining.
Look, I mean, that's all a film can be, isn't it? To be entertaining. What you take from that film is what you take from that film. And no, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. No. And if you were entertained by that scene, good on you. Yeah. Well done.
I thought it was brilliant. Not necessarily for the reason it was meant to be, but I really, really had fun.
We are in charge of interpreting our own approaches to a film. It's nothing to do with the makers anymore. It's ours now. So,
Yeah. And my third one is a line by Peter Cushing. Of course, you can't have a favourite moment without mentioning one of Peter Cushing's line deliveries. And there's a bit at the inquest when they're in the courtroom and he's been called to the stand about Hans, right?
Yeah.
And at first, they can't even get Frankenstein's attention because he's still reading a book or something, or going through some correspondence, on the stand. And then they finally manage to get his attention, and they say something like, "Are you Baron Frankenstein?" "Yes, I'm Baron Frankenstein." "What's your profession?" And he just goes, "I'm a very busy man."
He's so arrogant, isn't he?
He's so sassy.
I love it.
I love him.
I love it. Love it. This is the Frankenstein I want, not the whiny little bitch that we saw in Evil of Frankenstein. I want this monster. This is the one we want. Brilliant. Love him. Love him.
So good.
I've got a couple.
Yeah, go on. You were talking earlier about not Anton Morell, about
Thorley
Walters one.
Well, that moment, I think it's rather lovely, is where Dr. Hertz sits down with Christina after she's been revived, and she's very confused. She doesn't know where she is, what's going on. She doesn't even know who she is. And he just has this little talk with her when he tries to comfort her. And in doing so, he sings the praises of Frankenstein. Oh, he's a wonderful man. He's a fantastic...
That's right.
And then, he kind of then gets snapped out of his reverie by this disembodied voice shouting, "Hertz, Hertz, where are you? Come here at once." He's Frankenstein being Frankenstein. But I love the fact that this is the only other man in the film that tries to show Christina some compassion.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very different kind of relationship, obviously, than the one she had with Hans. It's almost fatherly. He's trying to reassure her. It's going to be all right. Frankenstein is a good man. It's going to be fine. I think that's a lovely little moment in an otherwise very bleak film.
Yeah,
A little glimmer of hope. The other bit I like is right at the start. With good old Duncan Lamont, he's one of my favourites. He's playing Hans's drunken father, being led to the guillotine.
That's right.
And the priest is reading the final rites, and he stops and he says to him, "If that's for my benefit, could you speak up a bit?" that's better. Not that I can understand a word of it, because he's speaking in Latin.
That's right.
This is so wonderful. This sort of bravado he's trying to show when he's on his way to the guillotine, because he's absolutely hammered, basically.
Yeah.
He's completely pissed. But it's a lovely little moment. It's quite disarming, because it's quite a funny comedy moment. And then it turns so dark when he spots Hans.
Oh my God, it's
watching him from a distance.
that switch.
Yeah.
From being very kind of defiant and like, a bit drunken and kind of like laughing at them and mocking them, etc., etc. And then the moment he spots his little son and it just switches like that.
Switches, yeah.
Oh my God.
Suddenly very dark and serious.
Chilling.
Really clever.
Yeah.
Beautiful bit of direction by Terence Fisher as well, and beautifully played by Duncan Lamont. So he's just superb. Really good. Really good.
Brilliant. How did this one do commercially for Hammer? How was it received having Frankenstein back?
Well, we know from financial records that were published by 20th Century Fox, the studio that released it. They put it out on a double bill with The Mummy's Shroud, which I believe we may be doing next
week.
Yeah. And it needed to earn $1,625,000 in rentals in the States to break even. And it made $1,590,000, meaning it made a very small loss. But I think it did better over here.
Okay.
I think it did better because we got Peter Cushing back. In the same way that, Dracula, Prince of Darkness was a hit because Christopher Lee was back playing Dracula. Of course people were going to flock to see that. Same with this. They're going to flock to see Peter Cushing playing Frankenstein again. Of course they were. And so it was still a viable box office draw for Hammer, which encouraged them to make more Frankenstein films. And I was so glad they did, because we will get one truly awful one, but we are going to get two absolute gems to come from this as well. And that would have come because this film was successful enough for Hammer to say, yeah, all right, we'll keep doing
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's time to rank. And I'd like you to go first, because I'm very curious to know where you're going to put it.
I'm going to put it in the middle.
Oh!
Because I think it's very flawed. There's a lot going wrong with the film. The woolliness of the script, but it's very upper middle for me. It's almost upper, but the woolliness of the script lets it down a little bit for me.
Yeah.
And, it's not a patch on the next film, Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, which is just a masterpiece, or indeed Frankenstein, the Monster from Hell. Well, draw a discreet veil over Horror of Frankenstein. I'm really not ready for that at the moment. I know that's coming, but I'm just at the moment. I'm tired and I'm hot and I'm sweaty, and I don't think I can think about Horror of Frankenstein.
Don't think about it, Kev. There'll be plenty of time for that.
But I'm saying it's upper middle, virtually on, because I think there's a lot going on in it that I do like a great deal. But it's just the woolliness of the ideas. It's not sharp enough for me.
I think that's a good way to put it. I have enjoyed this chat more than I enjoyed watching the movie.
Right, yeah.
But I've also found myself speaking more enthusiastically about it as the conversation's gone on than I was expecting to.
Right.
So I'm still going to put it at middle, which is where I was going to put it anyway.
Sure.
Which is a relief, because last week we had, one up this end, one down the other. It was all a bit of a disaster.
I know. If you missed last week's, go back and listen to it. Blood was almost drawn last week.
So at least we're back on, safe footing together, Kev.
We are, yes. Yes. It's when we get to Scars of Dracula and you say, oh, yes, it's the best Dracula film ever. That's when we're going to fall out, all right? That's when the end will be nigh, trust me.
But yeah, good. Okay, so slap bang in the middle. You're a little bit upper middle. I'm probably middle. I
think, yeah.
Otherwise, we're good.
I think it misses out on being upper by a hair's breadth for me. Simply because the sort of slight woolliness of the script. I think it needed to be just a bit more in focus for me.
Yeah, fair. Well, I mean, that wasn't so bad, was it?
We survived. I was dreading these two. This one and last week's one, because I've seen your scores on Letterboxd for these, and you've seen mine. And I think we dear listeners, we tend to stalk each other, me and Becky, just before we do the recordings. We tend to be on Letterboxd, checking out each other's opinions on the film. And it's always a massive relief when I go on there and see that we're pretty comparable in our rating.
Yeah.
And, you know, my heart did sink a little bit when I looked at the witches, and I thought, oh, no, this is the end of a beautiful friendship, isn't it? It's all over. It's all over. But we've survived.
We've survived.
Becky. We've got through.
Thank goodness Hammer Time will live to see another day. Thanks for listening to Hammer Time. We'll be back next week with John Gilling and Andre Morel as Egypt is looted once again in the Mummy Shroud, as Kevin just teased, from 1967. If you're watching along, you can pick it up on DVD and Blu-ray from Hammer and Studio Canal. To check out the full list of movies we'll be covering throughout this podcast, head to evolutionofhorror.com/hammer. We'd love to hear from you, so please send us questions or comments for upcoming mailbag episodes. Drop us an email to hammer@evolutionofhorror.com. You can follow the Evolution of Horror Network on Instagram at EOH_network and on BlueSky at Evolution of Horror. You can follow me on Instagram and BlueSky at Bunny Darke, and on Letterboxd I'm Becky Darke. And Kev, where can people find you and your work online?
You can find me as EOFFTV, the Encyclopedia of Fantastic Film and Television. That's my website. You can find me as that handle on BlueSky, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and Letterboxd.
Don't forget to rate and review us on your podcast app of choice. Thank you for listening, and join us again next week for another episode of Hammer Time.